this and that and what the fuck else. Episode 103. The title of this one is The Minsk Agreement Was a Lie. Now, it came as a shock to many people when Merkel revealed that. I think it's two interviews that she had with journalists. And she said that they never planned to implement the Minsk agreements, and they used the Minsk agreements just to play for time, to build up the Ukrainian military and to give them time to build their defense lines in the Donbass. Putin was shocked when he heard that. And as far as I'm concerned, the West can forget to get into a situation where they're going to dictate anything as far as peace is concerned in Ukraine. The Russians are not going to stop before they have reached their goals. And at this point in time, it seems to me that the whole of Ukraine is on borrowed time. The Russians has had enough. And they've had enough of the treachery of the West. And who can blame them? This NATO stories is absolutely bullshit. But NATO is worried. They're running out of ammunition, they're running out of weapons to give to Ukraine. And the UK has got big fucking mouths sitting there on their little island. And I saw an article yesterday, and I think I spoke about it in one of my Skidmarks, that the UK will be out of ammunition in 7 days if they should get involved in a war with Russia like in the Ukraine. So I'm just laughing. The West is really standing on jelly. Europe is done. Economically, Europe has been ruined by that pirate from Brussels. She made sure that Germany is never going to come back as an industrial force. She made sure. And I actually don't feel sorry for the Germans. They allowed it to happen. They allowed it. I'm in Kak here in South Africa, but I'm part of 4% of the population. The majority is out to fuck everything up and to fuck us up. And the Europeans, they used to be the majorities in their countries. That is in actual fact changing fast now. Those waves and waves of immigrants. Yeah, I saw some disturbing stuff about England, this English census. If I was an Englishman, I would be very worried, very worried. But in any case, here in South Africa, we've got shit with the load shedding, as you can see, and more things are coming out now. Eskom was deliberately and against all the warnings. They just continue. It's clear. Political interference has ruined that once successful, one of the world's most successful power generation corporation was wrecked by the ANC, and I'm going to say by the blacks in South Africa, because they vote for that fucking ANC. And now, people are suffering. I'm looking at the load shedding schedules and I can't believe it. It's holiday season. How can the small businesses survive with a 4-hour blackout during their working day? It's impossible. They can't make it. So I'm sure we're going to see a lot of job losses now, again, and a lot of the small businesses are going to close down. But in any case, let's get to the news. And as usual, I give you the news snippets that the mainstream media won't show you. And as has become practice with me now, I'm going to start it off with a photograph. Look at that image. It is, it's a beautiful girl, but From a photographic point of view, it's a very striking image. The image is well composed. I like the light, and the composition is good. And this would typically enter into a category called glamour, or it can even go through under portraiture. But it is a good image and well done to the photographer. And then we get to the pestilence. Things doesn't look so well anymore for the pushers, because Elon Musk is out to get them. And you see this. Poisoned women are now lying about their status as more men see them as an infertility risk. That is disturbing, I think. And the women should be worried. And I have read some articles in where the dating agencies also say this is what they see. And then we get to this. Now this is important to take note of. And I have spoken about the insane amount of money that Arden woman made in New Zealand, and the unbelievable wealth increase of that fucker in Canada, and it seems to me like all over the world, the pushers has made a lot of money. Bombshell. 500 billion IMF loan to South Africa was a personal bribe to Ramaphosa. Belarusian president claims the IMF and World Bank offered him $940 million bribe to impose the pestilence restrictions. Think about that. Let it sink in. And we know Gates gave the DA a lot of fucking money in the Cape as well. And who will forget the frantic drive that Adolf Windy ran in Cape province to get everybody bitten. And then we get to this. Now this is more disturbing news for the pushers. Indian government passes a responsibility for vax deaths onto producers. While inoculation against the pestilence was encouraged in public interest, there was no legal compulsion to get the shot. The government has said in the Supreme Court. Replying to a plea filed by the parents of two girls who passed away due to the side effects, the government said inoculation was voluntary and the deceased made an informed decision on it, bar and bench. The petition sought a probe into deaths, details on autopsy, and monetary compensation for the next of kin. It also wants the government to come up with a process for early detection and treatment of side effects. Now let's see, because I know there is also a case running in India against one of the WHO doctors, and she is charged with murder. And then there's also a case that are going to start now any moment, I don't know, going to start against Bill Gates. And then we get to the Donbass. And this is from Kherson. Humanitarian disaster and famine in Kherson. Life in the city has become a humanitarian hell since the return of the Ukrainian fighters. Unbearable conditions and hunger are forcing locals to leave Kherson as soon as possible. The video shows kilometer-long queues of desperate people trying to escape the famine set up by the Nazi Kiev regime. And I think if you think back, you can remember how the media showed us images and videos of the people welcoming the Ukrainian Nazis back into Kherson and so forth. And now look at that. And then you get to this. Now this is very disturbing. Pharmaceutical testing on Ukrainians. In the laboratories found in Rubezhnoye, Lugansk People's Republic, Kiev was testing cardiac drugs and drug containing nasal analgesics developed in the West. These drugs are unique and there is a high demand for them. As the chief state sanitary doctor of the LPR, Dmitry Dokashenko, clarified, The West was testing new narcotic painkillers in Ukraine in order to reduce spending on volunteers and specialists, as well as to hide information about possible failures. Using Ukrainians as experimental material is fully in line with the Ukrainian government's usual style. The main thing is to get good money for this. Think about it and keep it in mind. If you want to fly a Ukrainian flag, this is the type of stuff that you are supporting. And then we get to this. A hostel of Ukrainian refugees burned down in Germany. In total, 14 Ukrainians lived in a hotel for migrants in the commune in Krosstronkendorf. Police suspect arson. There were inscriptions with a swastika on the entrance plate. Bild reports there were no casualties. And I've read many articles that it seems like those Ukrainian refugees have overstayed their welcome in Europe. And then we get to this, and I did mention it in my introduction. Merkel's Ukraine remarks show breach of trust. Serbia. Former German Chancellor Angela Merkel, recent comments on the 2014-15 Minsk agreements have cast the Ukraine conflict in a new light, Serbian President Alexander Vučić said on Saturday. Merkel stated that Kiev used the ceasefire to rearm its troops. The peace deals brokered by Germany and France 8 years ago laid out a path for Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republics' peaceful reintegration into Ukraine. However, they were never implemented because the government of Ukraine argued over the interpretation of the agreements. Former Ukrainian President Pyotr Poroshenko eventually admitted that Kiev mainly intended to use the ceasefire to rebuild its military and the economy. Merkel seemed to confirm this in an interview with the German newspaper Der Zeit on Wednesday, saying that by signing the agreements, Ukraine won valuable time to muster a stronger army. And, as I said, Putin was not happy when he heard this. Then we get to this gender shit. Russia rebukes Canada over alien gender beliefs. The Russian embassy in Canada has blasted the country's government over its opposition to a new law criminalizing the spread of LGBTQ propaganda in Russia. Canadians should keep their alien beliefs to themselves, the diplomatic mission stressed on Saturday, reminding them that there are only two genders. The measure bans propaganda normalizing non-traditional relations, pedophilia and gender reassignment and passed the upper house of Russia's State Duma on Thursday. Widely seen as a follow-up to the 2013 law prohibiting the spread of LGBT materials among minors. It extends this ban to both minors and adults. Good for Russia. And I was in a discussion last night and I said to the guy, I'm waiting to see when the Europeans are going to start moving to Russia. And then we get to this thing. I have spoken about him a few times. Gender non-binary Biden's Deputy Assistant Secretary of Spent Fuel and Waste Disposition, Office of the Nuclear Energy, Sam Brinton, is charged with felony-level theft after allegedly stealing a woman's suitcase worth over $2,000 from a luggage conveyor in an airport, facing up to 5 years in prison and a $10,000 fine. And last night I saw another article, another video came out at another airport where he also stole the luggage. And just before I did the program, I saw news bulletin that apparently he's been fired by Biden. And then we get to this shit. And if I see something like this, my blood boils. Mentally sick people. Facebook allowed this ad. Facebook is run by pedophiles. Change my mind. What the fuck, Facebook? This is on Facebook for a pride ad. What the f... Now look at that image. That big grown-up fucking man with that little girl And it says, pedophilia is a natural sexual orientation. It is our responsibility to reflect and to overcome our negative feelings about pedophilia. What the fuck is that? All I can say is I have a granddaughter, and if a thing like this, try any stunts with her, he's not going to land in my electric fence. His dick and balls will be in a bucket at the fence, and he will be running screaming down the fucking farm road, and I hope the Bliksem leopards get him. With that blood trail, a good chance he will become prey. And then we have this from Agent Leon. I don't want men dressed as women to share a bathroom with my daughter. Transphobic. Believe in family values. White supremacist. Against open borders. Xenophobic. All life matters. A fascist. Believe in equal opportunity. Racist. Against pedophilia. A Nazi. Did I get that right? And this is a hell of a lot of truth. Look at it. Think about it. If you promote any good value, you are some form of a, I don't know what, his name it all there, in any case. And then you get to this cock in California. California's latest push for equality will help 5th grade boys understand safe and effective techniques for anal stimulation. The effort is hoped to curb homophobia by teaching boys how to explore anal gratification with their hands, household items and dildos. These techniques are taught in conjunction with the already in place lessons on safe anal intercourse that have replaced vaginal intercourse lessons, a sex education move taken in 2016 to reduce sexual violence against women. It was thought that this great leap forward in sex education would ruffle a few feathers. Sex education to include anal stimulation lessons for boys. And that's in California. I don't look. Those people has lost all morality. They are so woke that they are actually Satanists. And that's all I'm going to say about it. I've said it a few times. America, the United States of America must break up. The conservative states must go independent, because with the current political fuck-up they've got there, although they voted all against everything like this, once everything calms down and those people walk into the chambers, all of the needs and wishes of the population is gone, and they run with the narrative, Democrat and Republican. Then we get to the global revolution, and I started off, I have spoken about this car. What sanctions? As high-end Western vehicle brands pull out of the Russian market, the Aurus vehicle manufacturer begins serial production of a Russian luxury SUV, the Aurus Commandant. With 70% of components locally sourced in Russia, the first commercial sales will begin in 2023. The Aurus plant also makes the presidential Aurus Senat at a cost of 36 million rubles. That is $600,000. It runs on 2 electric motors and a hydrogen fuel motor. And I listened to Alexander earlier, and he mentioned that with the sanctions that was started by the West against Russia, there was a period where the Russian vehicle manufacturing plants took a knock, because they were building the vehicles there, but many of the spares came from Europe. And when the sanctions hit them, they started hunting. And then they found those same parts from third parties in other parts of the world. the guys who are actually manufacturing the stuff, they are now supplying the Russians. Then we have this. Russia discovered it does not need a single damn thing from the United States. But the US sure as hell needs Russia. One of the largest producers, fertilizer and uranium, makes it essential for the US, and Russia will soon control the rich resources of Ukraine too. The West made a big mistake here. And more. Putin. Russia does not challenge the elites of the West, but defends its right to existence and free development. At the same time, we ourselves are not going to become a new hegemon. Russia's message was the same. Let's live together. And you can look at the image, Putin and Xi. Those guys are not going to let America push them around anymore. And then we've got this. And I like his Pepe Escobar. He's very informed. The Eurasian Economic Union, EAEU, is interested in setting up a common payment system with BRICS nations. Plans include a single payment card that unites the national payment systems, including Russia's Mir, China's Union Pay, India's RuPay, Brazil's ELO, and others. Vladimir Kovalev, EAEU advisor, said the global financial system is changing. There is a need to create a new reserve currency and a settlement currency, taking into account the structures of trade and relations between the BRICS and the EAEU. The use of national currencies in mutual settlements is most justified. Guys, the days of the West controlling the globe is over. And then we get to the green stuff. Australia's alpine areas are snow covered 2 days from the start of summer. This is almost unheard of, yet ignored by the Bureau of Meteorology and MSM in their endless bid to push global warming. The Northern Hemisphere is experiencing the most extensive snow cover in 56 years. You will never hear about this on MS. And then more. Polar bear population is at its highest in 6 decades. But it doesn't fit the climate narrative, so we won't hear about it. And then there's a graph of polar bears from 1960 to 2020. Increasing, but they don't want you to know. And then there's this cartoon about the green thing. Look at it. Wall Street and the media is at the trough. And Biden feeds them the green agenda propaganda. And that pig said, can't believe they eat that stuff. Well, pig, me too. And then we get to this. Germany is burning a lot of coal, 45% of all electricity generation as wind stops blowing. Its electricity carbon intensity jumped to a crazy 745 grams, CO2 gram per kilowatt hour this evening. Higher than in South Africa and India. Closing nuclear matters. And that is true. And yes, and I've seen videos of helicopter crews de-icing those windmills. That's a balsa. And then this, I did a whole Skidmark where I talked about the threat that this guy had on Twitter. One of the worst forms of imperialism is rich nations taking raw materials from poor nations and leaving behind poverty rather than development. That's precisely what Europe is doing with Africa in the name of climate change. And I can see it here in my own country. Ramaphosa go and visit Biden. Biden, I don't know what did he give him, or how much, or what. Ramaphosa came back fully on the green wagon, and Andre de Ruyter joined him on that wagon. And the next, our coal is flying out by the truckloads through Mozambique and Richards Bay. And this is what they do. And then we get this. NASA admits climate change occurs because of changes in the Earth's solar orbit. not because of SUVs and fossil fuels. What a surprise. But will the mainstream media run with it? No, they will not, because it does not suit the narrative. And then we get to that warafak, and I put this warafak in for the guys. Look at that. You're running late for work and she needs a ride. What do? Well, look at that. I'm not going to elaborate on what I would do, but I've got a fucking nasty feeling I'm going to be late for work. And on that note, please give me a like and a subscribe and share the thing. Thank you for your support.